Mr. Mayor, it is 9 a.m. The live stream has begun, and you may begin your meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that we have quorum, so I call this meeting, regular council meeting of Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, into session. And first up, we will ask all those that may or can please stand for the national anthem.
From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Right, thank you. And as usual at this time, we have the land recognition statement read, and today the honor falls to me. The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land, steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hat-in-Wanderung, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. Town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of Indigenous peoples. Thank you. And before I go on to the approval of the agenda with council's indulgence, just like to thank Pelham Minor Hockey and the crew at our MCC, the Community Center, for putting on another successful silver stick tournament. I know during those 3 or 4 days that our staff put in yeoman hours, and from all accounts, it was indeed very successful. Councilors Kerr, Wink, and Hildebrand and myself had the pleasure of taking part in the opening ceremonies, and Thursday night the building was rocking. So again, thank you for a great event that puts Pelham on the map. So thank you for that. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to the adoption of the agenda. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that the agenda for the January 15th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as circulated. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the agenda, any comments? Not seeing any. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Olson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to notify you, have a notice of motion as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to disclosure of pecuniary interests.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any councilor member have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? And please note, clerk, I see none.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, we do not have any presentations this morning, so that brings us to the adoption of council minutes. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Eckert. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C21/2024, regular meeting of council from December 18th, 2024. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the minutes, does any council member have any additions or omissions to point out? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to item 7. If there are any items to which council would like to lift from the consent agenda, now would be the time to do so.
And I see Councilor Wink.
Yes, 8.2.1, please.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other items? Not seeing any. To you, Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to the consent agenda. If any members of council would like to speak on a topic, now would be the time, and we do have 3 categories today, beginning with staff reports.
Okay, thank you. And is there any comments on any of the staff reports? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Okay, and then information correspondence.
The next group, information and correspondence. Again, not seeing any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that brings you to advisory committee minutes.
Okay, and in the last group, again, not seeing any.
Okay, thank you. And therefore, I have a motion put forth by by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the January 15th, 2025 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved, save and accept item 8.2.1 to Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Again, one last time, any comments on any of the agenda items? Not seeing any, call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to item 9, which is consent agenda items lifted for separate consideration, and we have Councillor Wink's item 8.2.1.
Council Wink.
Thank you. I asked for this piece of correspondence to be added to the agenda. There's roughly, at last count, 80 municipalities that have put forward recommendations to look for a portion of the land transfer tax and the GST on the sale of properties in municipalities. That money would go to infrastructure, and as we all know, we have challenges with respect to infrastructure and funding of same. So I would like to just make a motion that we acknowledge receipt of the correspondence dated November 27th, 24 from the township or from the town of Aurora regarding the above-mentioned matter. Said correspondence was provided to the Town of Pelham Council for their consideration as part of the January 15th, 2025 meeting council in our consent agenda, and at the meeting, council adopted the following resolution, that 8.2.1 of the consent agenda being resolutions requesting the redistribution of provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding be endorsed. So I'd like that to go forward, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn to the clerk, see if he's busy
And
typing.
yes, and I'd be looking for a mover and a seconder on that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and is there a seconder on that motion? I see Councilor Nesnick.
Excellent, Mr. Mayor, and that's before you for consideration.
Okay, so any further comments on the motion put forward? Resolution, go ahead, Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Junkin. In the first place, there's only one taxpayer. And this means that we're going to be transferring money from one pocket to the other. And I think it represents a false economy and a false direction. First of all, the goods and services tax is a tax on goods and services. And it's a redistribution of something that is not intended for municipalities and for what we're doing. And for a long time, we only had a tax on goods and not services, and that's what changed. This is a misdirection of that. The land transfer tax is essentially, if you look at its source and where it comes from, it's a tax on wealth, which I think we're all trying to avoid taxing wealth. So for all those reasons, I think it's ill thought out, and I will be voting in opposition to it, even though I woke up this morning saying I would be more conforming in the future. So thank you.
Well, we'll look forward to the next meeting, perhaps. Thank you, Councilor Olson. Councilor Kerr.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The I'm supportive of this. Following the news, the City of Toronto has put in place their own additional land transfer tax on top of the provincial tax because they have insufficient funding from the provincial government to satisfy infrastructure. The City of Hamilton has proposed that they're going to initiate, similar to the City of Toronto, a second land transfer tax on top because they get insufficient funding from the provincial government for support of infrastructure. We have, and it'll sound kind of silly, but we have a provincial government that's proposing to send out a check to every person in this province that's going to total $3 billion to support them and try and do things, which in my mind means that there's monies within their coffers that they have found a way to redistribute. We all know that infrastructure is probably one of the biggest costs faced by any municipality. We have old infrastructure in a lot of places throughout Ontario that require upgrading, and we go hat in hand to the government on a routine basis, begging for things, and we hope that they will be nice enough to hand us some money that has already come out of our pockets, that's been collected by the provincial government. So I think this is worth supporting because I think it's bringing some of the money that we've handed them back to this municipality. It's not an additional tax. This is asking for some of the monies that are already being collected to be redistributed in a more meaningful manner to all the municipalities of Ontario. So I will support it.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Any other comments on the motion before us? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. After that speech for Councillor Kerr, I will definitely be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other councillor right now, so if I may comment on this. Wearing the councillor hat, the provincial government does indeed continue to download more and more onto the lower municipalities, talking mostly healthcare and lots of housing situations also. So when I first saw this, I thought, man, maybe I wasn't going to vote for it, but with all the downloading that is happening in the province and the way the municipalities are taking on more and more that used to be a provincial mandate, I think I definitely am going to support the motion and send a word, a message to the provincial government that, hey, we got a lot of expenses. A lot of them are because of what you're doing with the downloading. And maybe you can, if nothing else, it's a message that we need some help down at the grassroots level. So I will be supporting this resolution brought forward by Councillor Wink. I'll ask one more time. Any other comments? Not seeing any, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And all those opposed? One opposed, and the motion carries.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to reports from members of council. And our first report is from Councillor Niznik regarding a Pelham Cultural Advisory Committee update.
Oh, very good. Councillor Nesnick, you have the floor.
Thank you and good morning. Yes, so we have it up on the screen there. I won't read it verbatim for all of you, but you can read as we go along. So our Culture Advisory Committee did get started in 2024. It took us a while to kind of get booted up, but we have a full committee right now. A nice mix of seniors as well as some young artists as well as some performers. So it's a really wonderful group, and they have a great commitment to attending each month. So we began with some support from a consultant to kind of narrow in our foci for the next couple of years. So as you can see, we came up with 3 priorities. First of all, we needed to kind of know what was happening in Pelham. So we we reviewed those plans as looking there. We did a gap analysis. One of our members took them and did a gap analysis, so we do have that for reference as we make further plans. We also developed further priorities based on that review and tried to come up with some guiding principles for our decision, making sure that we always consider inclusion and affordability. As well, we wanted to reach out to the community with increased communication and try to engage them in the cultural and arts areas. Education regarding the importance of impact of art and culture in the community. We're trying to look for ways to expand what folks think of when they hear art as well as culture. It isn't just visual arts. So we have one passionate member on committee that always reminds us of that it also includes the performing arts as well as structural art and etc. As well, we want to try and help and enhance the existing events and wonderful activities that our town certainly participates in. So our progress on that was we did create a survey, which we handed out at our Summer Fest booth. The booth provided both a fun children's activity based on a storybook, and then we held a raffle for both an adult and a child's. They won a basket full of books and arts and beverages and pottery, all from local businesses. And then financially, we supported Canada Day and the Summerfest music presentations and holiday workshops. The Ontario Arts Council Mural Project assisted in selection of the theme and helped facilitate the paint and skate events that's happening. That's going to be a very exciting event unfolding that. We also provided recommendations and advice to council. So we gave suggestions regarding the public art policy, which has been approved by council earlier this year. We brought forth a proposal to improve the appearance of the bases for the arches, which council has since approved to resurface those bases and move the sponsor names to brick inserts along the walkways. We've asked that some funds be used to purchase artistic wraps for some of the electrical boxes on town streets. This project is kind of in the middle of the works, yet to be finalized, but we will be bringing that for consideration to council in a future date once we have more information around that. We've created a list of possible future murals topics that have a specific focus, that being athletics, businesses, local flora and fauna, etc. And then we supported staff to seek grants for culture projects, one being the current mural Paint by Numbers that's almost completed. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to go in and paint a little bit on that mural. I know one resident came in, he painted one little tulip and then away he went back to work. So not sure if there's any more public planned painting times, but certainly as councillors, if you'd like to go, make sure you just contact the MCC folks and they'll figure out a way, or it's Karen Blake, contact her and she'll figure out a way for you to put your stamp on the paint by number. It's almost completed and will be presented at council later this month, so stay tuned for that. Our next steps of the committee moving forward is we will continue to explore the wraps and arts that could cover some electrical boxes around our community, support grant opportunities, and just continue to explore and expand, support creative and cultural events throughout the town. So any questions? I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, we'll go back to committee and keep on working for the cultural and art areas. Thank you.
Great report, and Council Nesnick, and thank you very much for bringing that to council. Any council members have any questions for the councillor? Not seeing any, then I would just call the, I'll turn to the clerk.
Yeah, no problem. I have a motion put forth by Deputy Mayor Eckert and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that council receive the report from Councillor Nisnik regarding the PCAC 2024 summary.
Thank you. Again, one last chance. Any questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries. Again, thank you for that wholesome report. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to your next report from Councillor Olson regarding the Niagara Regional Transit Master Plan.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Olson, is this hopefully we'll have something about a reduction in fares, perhaps?
Boy, there's a setup, eh?
Well, I would just say, Mr. Mayor, that responsibility is not a burden, and I'm happy to be able to report on this to you, so.
And we look forward to the report, sir.
Yeah, okay. First of all, this is a report on the development of our master plan. And the master plan is, we regard this as a business prerequisite for a successful operation. So the master plan will be addressing the transit facilities that we inherited from the various locations, namely Welland, Niagara Falls, and St. Catharines for the fixed transit. And the other sites are all pretty mobile. And we're going to be talking about our what direction we're going to be going in far as variety of fuels and power sources, and more importantly for the town of Pelham is going to be the development of the service network. So council will remember that the first year of transit, which we've completed in 2023, was a smoothing year where we tried to smooth out the level of service and the quality of service. Then we moved into the year 2024, we moved into a commingling, which means that if you were picked up by one of our transit vehicles, our micro-transit vehicles, you might have to share the ride with somebody else for efficiency's sake. And now we've moved into phase 3 in 2025, which is the full master plan report, which will arrive on the desk in the third quarter of 2025. But there is a preliminary report that has come out and it will be available for review probably in the last week and the first 2 weeks of February of this year. And these are important things because they consider things such as the fixed route expansion, which could include such things as a Lundy's Lane bus coming down Highway 20 as far as MCC, perhaps to Lookout, and there's even what I would call an extended version which goes as far as Bismarck. So that might not be a feasible thing at this point, but this is the kind of thing, and this is our opportunity to make sure that we're on the list for consideration of our request for transit. The other things that could happen, we're going to be talking about expansion of the service until Sundays as well. So it'll be full 7 days a week service, 365 days of the year. So those are some of the things that are going to be proposed, and as well as some expansions of, well, the fares, as the mayor mentioned, the fares are going to be a consistent fare across the region, and right now it's basically $3, and I expect that we're going to see that go to $3.50, because $3.50 is the fare that's in common with what they charge in Toronto and what they charge in Niagara Falls, but it would mean that you could go from any point in the region to any other point in the region for $3.50, and I'm not guaranteeing you won't have to transfer, but there'll be opportunities for that. So the first round of engagement already focused on the current state of transit, and that will be reported. We've had engagement strategies, and we have our statistical data, and we have the staff analysis of the alternatives being completed. And under services area, we should mention that there are underserviced areas in Pelham, Welland, and a number of places, and they're mostly where we have new subdivisions. For example, the corner of Pelham Street and Weber Road, that development there does not have service yet, and that will be added to the service. So that's going to come at a cost. So the focus is going to be on the draft master plan in the next couple of months, and we're going to be seeking feedback on the future possibilities and the concepts for transit in Niagara and in Pelham. The opportunity, it's a time for the town to go to our advisory committees, our people with disabilities, organizations such as Pelham Cares, our service clubs and our environmental groups, and our retirement homes to ask for their input on on what they would like to see the services like in the town of Pelham. I've been to 2 meetings at the retirement homes, and they're telling me that their chief concern is their disabilities and their fact that a lot of them have outlived their driving privileges, so they need transit to get around, and I think this is going to be a tremendous opportunity for that. And the feedback I'm getting is very positive about it, and the real problem appears to be that we can't get the message out fast enough or wide enough about what the service is going to provide. So I would like to suggest that we're going to be developing a communication strategy, but we also want to have a service strategy and a quality of service strategy as well. So that's my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. A lot on the commission's plate. It was a big step for the region 2 years ago when we took on public transit,
Yeah.
region-wide, and it's an expense, but it's a sign of a mature community that has their own public transit system. It's interesting to note the 350 fare, or possible 350 fare. There are, of course, transit systems in the states that don't have fares. Has the commission, I don't know what the income is on your fares. Has the commission ever thought of that alternative instead of raising, just open it up and not have fares? What's the consequence of something like that?
That's a truly radical idea, Mr. Mayor. So the fact is that there was a movement to address the fares and raise the fares a couple of years ago, and we looked at the number of people that were able to buy passes, and 80 or 90% of the fares on the transit system are by individual tickets, because people still simply cannot afford to collect all the money needed for a pass. And you're going to find that those the tax fatigue and everything else that's going to happen, their fare fatigues, they're going to be a drastic thing. But I can actually see the possibility, if you wanted my view of it, I could actually see that we could replace some of the school bus routes with the transit system, because the longer routes and that type of thing, they could be done by on demand, and better utilize all our resources. But I can see that. But the fare of $3.50 will be a burden. We do offer things such as discounts for self-declared disabilities and things like that. So there are opportunities for that, and for seniors, and based on income. And if we get to the card level, you'll never know who is paying what. They just have a card, and that'll come off their credit card. But that is, and people are finding it really a burden to own a vehicle now, because that's become an equity issue as well. So, in the world of transit.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I was going to say Commissioner, Councillor. Any other questions on the report? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Not exactly on the report, but with regards to the software that they're using now for the app, has that been all ironed out? Because I know initially we had one software provider, and then they changed software providers. And for me, that was a little bit of a hiccup when I tried to transition my app from one to the other. Do you know the status of that?
Well, when we originally inherited the systems, we inherited the software, so we had all different software. Now we've standardized on the one set of software. We had one individual who was responsible for programming. Now we have 3 people in the Transit Commission. So I think that's going to be the benefit of that will start to be seen. But we're going to standardize on one set of software, and we'll probably standardize on on one type of vehicle and one sort of type of power source. The goal is going to be standardization here.
Thank you. That's excellent.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the report? Not seeing any. Last comment I'd like to make, Councillor, is that it's great to see the organization reaching out to the grassroots organizations in all the municipalities for any suggestions, comments that they may have going forward. So anytime an organization does that, you know that they're heading in the right direction. So please pass that those comments on to the commission, please. Without any further comments, I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation from Councillor Olson regarding the Niagara Regional Transit Master Plan for information.
Okay, thank you. One last time, any further comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to item 10.2, staff reports requiring action. And our first item is 10.2.1, information report, feedback, and next steps for the new Town of Pelham official plan. And I have a motion put forth by Deputy Mayor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2025-0006 for information, and that Council direct staff to utilize the natural environment system policies and mapping contained in the Region of Niagara official plan 2022 in the preparation for the Town of Pelham's new official plan. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Before I open it to council, one question to the Director of Planning, Ms. Dusling. I see coming forward that right now the staff is working on draft 2, but they don't have timelines. Can you give us some timelines as to when you think draft 2 will be completed and when that will, I believe the next step then is a statutory meeting in front of council or to the public, to council. When do you see all this unfolding, if you may?
To the mayor, great question. We've been doing our best in policy planning to move this important project forward. We're hoping to come to council with a statutory public meeting on the draft 2 or final version in April.
Oh, okay, excellent. And I was, as I was reading the report, it seems like we've been working on this for quite a while. But then it occurred to me that one of the reasons that it's taken so long is because we've been, the department has reached out to the public on numerous public meetings, and I'm glad to see in the report you've met with developers. So better to take it slow, get it right, and get all public input. And I think that's a great way that we're going forward. And yeah, I'm just like everyone, it'd be nice to see the final report when it comes. Thank you for that. Any other questions on this? Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Either to the Director of Planning or Ms. Richardson. So I'm glad to see, as the mayor pointed out, that we're consulting public and developers going forward. There's some meetings planned in the future, I think I saw in here. Does anything we do today to approve this motion, does that conflict with those meetings with developers or the public? We make a motion here, and I noticed that the second part of the motion, it says to utilize, but that it's not saying to adhere to. To me, there's a difference with that. But are those consultations affected by anything that we do today passing this motion?
To the Director.
Through you, the mayor, to councillor, the quick answer is no. The conversations that we are continuing to have with our development community in the next few weeks are going to be based around primarily design and the environment. And if you choose to bring forward, I'm going to use the words, the regional's official plan, environmental system policies and mapping, we will continue to have those discussions based around the policy regime today. With our developers. Now, that being said, there may be some fine tuning on site-specific properties that we may choose to have discussions with property owners on and tweak, which will be in addition to the policy regime that exists today.
Okay, thank you. And just to pile on the mayor's comments, you know, this has maybe taken a long time, or some people think it's taken a long time, but I'd rather get this right. And so I'm encouraging you and your staff to continue on this way. We're not going to get everybody to agree to everything on either side, but I think we have the talent that we can come up with a good policy that everyone can live with, let's say. So thank you for that. And of course, nothing we do here today is enshrining anything in stone because we haven't got a lot of the information yet, which I'm sure will be coming in phase 2 and 3.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Eckert. Any other comments on this? Go to Councilor Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. Just going back to the last meeting about comments regarding parking, I think it's imperative that we have something in the official plan regarding parking. And I would like to add to the resolution and that council directs staff to update official plan policies to prioritize the protection of parking, and that council directs staff to update the official plan policies to protect ground floor commercial space in the downtown designation.
Okay, thank you. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I do have that noted. I do believe that might be better suited as a standalone motion, so perhaps we can dispose of the matter on the floor and then move to Councillor Wink's motion.
Councilor?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. So we will continue on with the, any other questions on, 10.2.1? Not seeing any. I guess my last question to the director, please, would be at the region, like there's been so many changes now to the Planning Act coming down from the province, and I know that the when the region did the region's official plan, there's quite a strong emphasis on natural heritage systems, and that seems to be carrying over onto our official plan. And I guess my question is, have you been getting, has our planning department been getting a strong pushback asking for us to relax some of those conditions, or do most of the affected residents are accepting what's in the plan?
Through you, the mayor, to council, and I'll ask Mrs. Richardson to jump in on any information she feels is necessary as well. I would say generally, especially from the public consultation, we've been receiving that the environment is very important to the community. We have some very specific natural environment here in the town of Pelham and Niagara as a whole, and we want to keep those and maintain and protect those corridors, especially for our younger generation. We've been hearing a lot of those comments from them. That being said, we have heard site-specific on specific properties tweaks within those policies. So that's what we're working through on an individual basis. But generally, the public is very happy with maintaining a high level of protection of the environment.
Excellent. Good to hear. Ms. Richardson, any comments? No, you okay? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I think you're following on your question. I believe that the meetings I've attended, that the environment has received the proper amount of attention. And I believe a lot of people are surprised at the level of skill and knowledge that we do have in the town, because they were maybe not surprised, but unaware would be a better way of saying it, because they just weren't aware that we have some of the experts employed by the town right here in drainage and in low impact development particularly. I feel very confident in looking at the report and listening to it that we're addressing these important things, and it certainly has been a topic among all generations that we have to take responsibility for the environment. And the fact that we have this now built into our we'll build this into our official plan and our strategic plan means that the environment takes its proper place, and the fact that strategy number 6, I think, from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities was that an environmental screen be applied to all decisions, and I think this serves that purpose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that brings you to Councillor Wink's motion regarding the protection of parking and protection of ground floor commercial space.
Thank you. Any further comments, Councillor?
Just basically to say that parking is very important. We're looking at reducing parking on busy streets and whatever, and disregarding the need for visitor parking and the like. We've got property on Pelham Street or Highway 20 that's been approved for a 6-unit boutique hotel, but the parking is only 6 parking spots. So that's just for the people who are renting out the rooms, but there's nothing there for staff. And the comment is, well, they can park at the plaza down here. And as we know with Thursday nights, parking is important for the owners or the businesses in the plaza, so we can't be just dumping our parking problems into the parking lots of other businesses in the community.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor. Any other comments, questions? Call a vote. I guess
Sorry,
before
Mr. Mayor, I would just be looking for a seconder on that
I'm
motion.
sorry. Indeed. Councillor Kerr will second.
Excellent, thank you.
And my comments are, I agree that Pelham is, as we continue to build and infill, we sometimes have been negligent on enforcing or creating parking situations that don't affect other people in the neighborhood. So I will support this. I know it only seems, well, it's only 1 or 2 parking spots, but 1 or 2 parking spots, from what I hear, are very important to the people in the neighborhood. So I will support this. Councillor Kerr?
Yes, I think it's an opportune time to have it included. For those who are following the local news and issues in St. Catharines, where residents within a large-scale apartment building suddenly had the owner of the building put in pay parking for visitors. And the council in St. Catharines is actually now opening up street parking to allow for those people that can have visitors into their building. Now at least they won't have to pay to come in. So this highlights that the parking issue is not just Pelham, but these are some of the things that we don't think about at the time, recognizing private property has the wherewithal to charge for parking on their property, and suddenly things like this can happen and municipalities have no control over it. So yes, I think it's critical that we ensure that the parking's made available to them.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you. So just making sure that this doesn't muddy the waters, and I guess through you, Mr. Mayor, it'd be a question for Dr. Dusling. So is this better in the official plan, or should it be remained in the town zoning bylaw, the issue of parking, or could a general statement be put into the, just want to make sure we're not muddying the waters with the 2 different rules. Thanks.
To the Director of Planning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor, great question. Definitely now is the time to have this discussion and to put the policy regime in place so that we can implement that in the zoning bylaw.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. Call the vote on the, what is this, a resolution or a motion? It's a motion.
The motion.
Okay. I'll call a vote on the motion. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries. And thank you, Councillor Wink, for bringing that forward. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next item is 10.2.2, fees for marker perpetual care and maintenance. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that council receive memo 2025-0031 for information, and that council approve the amendment to bylaw 88-2024, being the fees and charges for the marker perpetual care and maintenance fees to remain the same as the 2024 rate as per the BAO fee calendar, and that council direct staff to prepare the amendment to the bylaw for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comments or questions on the markers? Councillor Kerr.
Yes, this is pretty simplistic. It's a 3% increase, so it's well within the purvey of operational cost increase. So I think I'm supporting it.
Yes. Excellent, thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. To the clerk.
Through Mr. Mayor, the next item is 10.2.3, proposed 2025 municipal community grants, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Deputy Mayor Eckert. Be it resolved that council receive report 2025-0022 for information, and that council approve the 2025 municipal grant allocations for $19,433.41, waived fees, $28,500 cash allocation, and $19,848.81 established in-kind labor request as outlined in the 2025 municipal grant allocation summary. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. If I can turn to the CAO to clarify, because I know you and I had a discussion about this, and I still have one or two points maybe I'm not clear on. So if we approve this, what gets, do we knock something off the list, or is that what we're doing?
Well, that is correct. Staff are, of course, obligated to stick within budgets as approved by council, and there's a finite amount of money in the community grants line of the budget, as is appropriate. And as per our default operating practice, after the budget gets approved, we sort of take those monies, however much you approve, and then try to shoehorn all the anticipated asks, which are just based on historical ask, into the year going forward. So, and inflation hits these items as much as it does everything else in life. So in working with that budget, the most responsible recommendations we could make are contained in the report. Unfortunately, that does leave off the $1,500 scholarship or bursary. I can't remember which term they use, but at Crosley High School, you'll see that in the report. Couldn't quite shoehorn that in there. So that's an item not there, so as, which, you know, based on an assessment of what comes back to core municipal responsibility and core service provision, you'll notice most of the in-kind donations typically have to do with facility usage, field usage, that sort of thing. And then the cash ones are fairly self-evident, but you recognize all those. That was sort of the odd thing out, and our only choice was to come in either significantly over budget, but we don't have any right or directions to do that, or we had to make a cut somewhere. And that seemed like unfortunately, the most appropriate one to make. So this is us trying to comply within the confines of the budget, us making recommendations to you. You, of course, don't have to take our advice, and unlike us, you can choose to spend over the budget. So that's, you have some choice and some flexibility if that's unacceptable to you. But that's where we're at. I should say, as an aside, I think I've had a significant conversation with a number, but particularly Ms. Van Ravensway, but some of our leaders in RCW who sort of take the lead on this, because they're really the locus, how we interact with the community on these files. And I think we're agreed that this is an area that deserves some reflection this year, and we're actually going to suggest this as an item in the strategic plan update that we should be focusing on looking at how our whole grant system, from the accounting piece on to the actual operations and how we interact. So I think there's a fruitful area for us to explore later on. That's sort of an unrelated note, but our recommendations are contained in the report, and no one is happy or celebrating the fact that the scholarship didn't make the cut from our perspective, but it didn't because there wasn't enough money to accomplish everything this year, and fundamentally that comes back to inflation of costs, right? So those are my comments. Hope they're helpful.
Okay, thank you. And part of the reason that that got as high as it did or over budget was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, during our discussion, was the fact that staff is doing a more accurate job of pricing in kind, but in kind contributions. Is that correct?
Yes. Look, fundamentally, about 4 or 5 years ago, we started looking at doing a better job or putting emphasis on accurately counting how much the town spends on festivals and events, and that sort of spread into the in-kind and the grants. So I'm not sure that historically we were doing an A+ job of actually counting or accounting for the amount of effort and time devoted, particularly on the in-kind grants piece. And I think we do I think there's a job that people, staff, both in the finance department and in recreation can be proud of. I think we're doing a much better job accounting. Now, it's not actually, forgive me, but it's not actually real money, right? It's already budgeted, and it's just sort of how we account for spending that's already happening. So when we say it's an overage with respect to in-kind donation, if we're talking about someone using a room inside the MCC and the amount of time it takes to clean that room and to set up and take down and whatever else, so we're doing a better job accounting for that. We're still spending the exact same amount. The point is that room was solely used by one group, one community group, and to the exclusion of others. Therefore, it's an in-kind donation because other people don't have access to the public good at the time. But it's not really new money. It's not going over budget with actual real dollars. So broadly speaking, I think we should be happy that we're doing a better job accounting for the efforts we're putting in, and that makes it sort of, now if it was the cash donations, it would be real money going over budget, but it's really on the in-kind side. I think if you read through the report and or ask questions of Ms. Van Ravensway or Ms. Quinlan Murphy, you'll find that sort of bears out. But then that leads back to a policy decision. And why I think this is worth focusing on in 2025 as a internal project for sort of better performance. I think this is worthy of future efforts by a number of talented members of the team.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple other questions, but I'll open it to council and hear what they have to say. Councilor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you. So just looking through the chart, I see that you have, as you said, been more accurate with regards to the waived fees for room rentals and that sort of thing, so understand the costs there. I would like to propose or maybe have folks just consider that the Women's Place asked for $2,500, you've budgeted $3,000, as well as the Fonthill Lions Club has requested $3,500 and you've given them $4,000. If you took $500 from each of those, you would be able to give the E.L. Crosley Scholarship and keep that in place. I do think that's important. I also really think if you're going to be giving Crosley a scholarship, you should also consider Notre Dame, because we do have many students that live in Pelham who are residents of Pelham who attend Notre Dame and probably should, if you're going to give, or even if you want to split it and give $500, just reduce the scholarship to Crosley to $500 and give $500 to a Notre Dame student who lives in Pelham and call it the Pelham Scholarship or whatever you call it. That's fine, but they would have to be a resident of Pelham. But I think to be fair, those two secondary schools should each have a scholarship. So that would be one way. I'm not sure how other folks would feel about shifting those monies to that group. So those are my comments on that, or looking for maybe some consideration from others with regards to that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Nesnick, for those comments. I'll turn to other members of council. Councilor Kerr.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand the sentiments of Councilor Niznik. The one challenge is that any high school student can attend any high school within the region through the school board situation, so they're not obligated to go to a particular school. If I had chosen to go to St. Catherine's Collegiate and I lived in Pelham, I go to St. Catherine's Collegiate, et cetera, et cetera. I think part of the recognition was the fact that it was a public high school within the town of Pelham versus the Catholic education system, but there's multiple schools within Pelham. We're getting into a slippery slope of things right now. I understand your comments. I'm not sure where to draw the line and try to set this up from that perspective. You know, reallocating funds or creating another one, I'm I have to admit I'm juggling at this point, basing it from that perspective, looking at the support systems for each school system.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Kerr. I do believe that we've always given to Crosley because they are indeed the public school that's in the town, located physically in the town. That's where we always drew the line. But before I go to any members of council, I'll go to the Director of Finance. If we were going to keep everything the way it is, where would I mean, we're not talking millions, we're not talking hundreds of thousands, we're talking a couple of $1,000s here. Is that going to put a huge strain on the system?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we can afford that.
Okay, so my thoughts, council, is before we start rejuggling things, is just thank staff for doing a better job of doing the in-kind accounting, and just increase this particular part. I know we can't go through and do everything, but it's not a huge amount of money. And I myself, I like the idea that in this tough times that we do have a scholarship going out to a local high school. I'd like to continue that. Any other comments from council on that idea? Councilor, Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would be in support of reinstating the scholarship to E.L. Crosley for the reasons that Councillor Kerr gave, that it is a public high school located in the town of Pelham, and it's just been a traditional scholarship. I have a question, though, to the Director of Finance. So just to clarify, the Fonthill Lions Club and Women's Place, was that their ask, $2,500 and $3,500, and why did we bump it up $500 more?
Okay, I'm going to pass this to the Director of Recreation.
Oh, okay, thank you.
To Mrs. Van Ravensway.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, the first column is actually, that's where you're getting confused. The first column is actually what was given in 2024. That wasn't their ask.
Okay.
So that's what the column was. Actually, Women's Place ask was $4,000, and the Fonthill Lions, they're getting what they asked for. Sorry. Their ask was $3,500, I believe. Let me see, Fonthill Lions. Oh, yeah, their ask was $4,000, and that's what they're getting is $4,000.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate you pointing out where I get confused. I need all the help. So thank you very much for that answer. I would be in favor of, especially on the comments of the finance director, of reinstating the $1,000 scholarship to E.L. Crosley School.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments along those lines? Councilor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Junkin. I would go along with scholarships, and I'd also go along with Councillor Niznik's comment about Notre Dame, because that group is, they've expressed to me a wish several times that they want to be more engaged in the community, and I think this is only fair that we should give it to the other education stream, namely the Catholic stream as well.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Anyone on this side? I see Councilor Niznik wants to make further comments. Councilor Wink?
So I agree with the scholarship, but I concur with Councillor Kerr's comments about the physical location of the school being in Pelham. So I would not look at giving additional scholarships.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go to Councilor Niznik.
Yeah, so I guess it's just a difference of philosophy. Historically, there was a separate system and a public system. One was funded differently than the others. Nowadays, everybody is funded equally through your tax dollars. So I have a child, for instance, if they go to St. Alexander's or what's the Catholic school in Fenwick? St. Anne's, thank you. St. Anne's, then their natural step is to shift to and stay in their separate system, or the Catholic system, and attend Notre Dame. Meanwhile, they are lifelong residents of Pelham. So in my opinion, in fairness, if you're going to give scholarships to secondary students, you should give it to both secondary institutions. That would be my that's my thinking. I know traditionally, you support your public school, but times have changed, and it is a different view at this time. So I think we have as many students who live in Pelham attend Notre Dame as those students who live in Pelham who attend E.L. Crosley Secondary School. Yes, it is a choice, and if you choose to go to a Ridley College, then certainly that's a separate entity. Or my one child went to a North St. Catherine's Secondary School for a couple years because I was working out that way. So that was fine. That was my choice. I didn't expect a scholarship from that secondary school funded by Pelham. But I do believe that there's enough residents in Pelham who attend Notre Dame that should be given consideration. So I guess I'm going to make a motion that we increase the budget line by $2,000, $1,000 going to E.L. Crosley Secondary School, $1,000 going to Notre Dame. And we'll see where it goes from there. How's that?
Thank you. And I think, pardon, so do we have a seconder, first of all? Okay, Councilor Olson will second. If this motion, now that we are going to discuss it, I would like to see us vote A and B. So the A would be to continue the bursary, and the second would be to increase it to include another school. Okay, so we'll have a discussion based on that, or if there's no discussion, I'll just we'll vote on the two separate things. Councilor Olson. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
You look alike, what can I say? I'm sorry, Councilor Kerr.
I agree. I think splitting the motion, I think there's part one and then there's a part two. Otherwise, they're linked together, and then you defeat, if it's agreed, then it goes one way, but if it's defeated, then we have to go backwards. So I think let's split it into two motions.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Eckert?
So then the question goes back to the finance director, because we got an answer about reinstating the E.L. Crosley. What sort of impact do we have of doubling it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're okay with that.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Any other, Councilor Olson?
Yes, I would say that location really depends on the taxpayer, and our taxpayers are, for Notre Dame and the separate system live in Pelham as well, as they do as the ones that support the public system. So I don't think location means anything.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Any other comment? Then we go back to Councilor Kerr.
I guess I'll lob into the equation. We have a significant population around Fenwick that sends their children to Wellandport, to the Christian schools, all the way through. So we now have a similar group of residents that are supporting another educational system. This is where the thin edge goes. I guess I'm looking at physical location within a community versus outside. But that's a personal opinion that everybody has, and I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any more comments before we go to the vote? Counselor Kerr.
So I guess to follow up, does Councillor Niznik want to take the motion back, and then we'll put two new motions on the floor? Or do we split it?
Councilor Nesma?
I guess we'll look through you to the clerk for some advice on that. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do
Through Mr. Mayor, we can use the same mover and seconder for both and split them for two separate votes.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So the first would be to reinstate the $1,000 scholarship to E.L. Crossley.
Yes, okay. So any further discussion on this part of the motion? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries. And then ask the clerk to read the second.
The second would be to create the $1,000 scholarship to Notre Dame.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Motion is defeated. Okay, thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that would be the one amendment did pass. So now you may consider the motion as amended, including that addition.
Excellent. So the motion as amended, any further comments on that? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And I see, any all opposed? Motion carries. Excellent. To you, Madam Clerk.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to our next item, 10.2.4, Personal Alcohol Consumption in Peace Park Program Implementation. I have a motion put forth by Councilor Rink, seconded by Deputy Mayor Eckert. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2025-0004 for information, and that Council approve the implementation of year-round permanent permission for personal alcohol consumption in Peace Park for those of legal drinking age, and that Council direct staff to prepare and present the amending bylaw for Council's consideration at the next regular meeting of Council. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion from Council on this agenda item? Councilor Niznik.
So thank you. Through you, just I guess a question. Would it go to maybe the clerk? I'm not sure who. Yeah, the clerk. So if, for instance, my husband and I wanted to do a Tuesday afternoon picnic in the park, we could bring, if this motion is passed, we could bring some cocktails with us and enjoy our picnic in the park without any notification to the town or any permission needed by anybody. We would just crack open the brewskis and have a nice picnic. Is that what would happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. As long as there's not a concurrent town event running with an SOP, that's correct, yes.
Great, thank you. I just needed clarification to make sure I was on the right train of thought. Thank you.
And will members of council be invited to this party, Council?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on this item? Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Just to the clerk, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we didn't have any, I read in the report there was no substantive issues during the pilot project. I just refer back to that one unfortunate incident we had. But that had nothing to do with our alcohol sales, or is that correct?
I'll let the CAO answer that.
The unfortunate issue to which or incident to which you're alluding, sir, actually occurred during the time we had a liquor license. That's right. So the exact the time period that would be excluded by this report.
Thank you very much. Yes, you're right. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries. To the clerk.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is 10.2.5, proposed policy for animals in town facilities. And I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that council receive report 2025-0020 for information, and that council approve policy number S100-17, the animals in town facilities policy. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any members of council? I got a couple of comments. Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Junkin. I would like to ask bylaw perhaps if, do we not have a policy right now or a bylaw that says we have to have animals on leashes now?
To the fire chief, bylaw officer.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We do currently have a policy that doesn't allow dogs or animals at large. They have to be care and control of the owner and on a leash.
But with that, I'm sorry, Count, you have the floor. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Oh, so this bylaw, of course, excludes the fact that even if they're on a leash, you can't bring them in the building. I'm looking at legal.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. So this is a policy as opposed to a bylaw. It's intended to work in tandem with the animal control bylaw that council has recently approved. In all cases, as the fire chief has indicated, animals cannot be at large, but the bylaw, the animal bylaw, does not expressly exclude animals from town facilities. And of course, we cannot and do not wish to exclude service animals, but this policy is intended to provide some clarity and some assistance to staff when dealing with persons who wish to bring animals into town facilities, whether they are service animals, support animals, or otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions and comments? So my comments are, first of all, I'd like to know what are the policies of surrounding municipalities, because in this day and age of residents loving their pets, I guess they've always done that. But when I think of the big stores, Canadian Tire has a sign, "We welcome your pets into the buildings, but they have to be on a leash." So I'm wondering if someone's walking in the town and they have their pet with them, dog with them, and they want to stop off at town hall and pay the taxes, inquire about some event in the town, they're going to have to tie the dog up outside. They're not going to be able to bring a relatively docile animal that's on a leash into our buildings. I get the fact that we had an incident at the community center. Someone actually had the dog off the leash, and I don't know what anybody is thinking of having a dog off the leash inside of a building, and that I can understand. But I'm just a little, if we're not overkilling the situation here. We've had one incident. I don't know who to ask. Did we indeed, when we drew up this policy, did we see what other municipalities are doing? I'll go to Ms. Sturton if I believe you probably did the policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I did a deep dive into the regulatory regime for this issue, and my joke was that it's a bit of a dog's breakfast, if you'll pardon the pun. So there are a lot of large organizations, post-secondary institutions, that sort of thing, that have policies for pets and non-pets. Most municipalities have a policy for service animals, and that's an easy one. I was not able to find any immediate neighbors of ours that had a policy on this point. Hamilton has one, Guelph has one, Waterloo has one. So there are larger municipalities that do have policies that provide for essentially what we've provided for, although typically they don't draw the distinction between service animals and support animals. They just preclude all support animals. But from my perspective, based on the human rights case law, I don't think that's defensible. So I've gone a little further and tried to balance the rights of persons who require a support animal that is not necessarily a service animal against those of persons who may have a fear or an allergy with respect to animals who are also trying to access town facilities. So the entire policy is premised on balancing the rights of all interest holders, some of whom like animals, some of whom don't, and You can't please all the people all the time, but I've done my best.
But what about the dogs? Yes, I appreciate the time you obviously have put into this policy, and I'm glad that that you had, as I expected, that you did a deep dive and found out how the other municipalities in the province were handling this. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions before I call a vote on this? Oh, I'll go to Councilor Wink first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Ms. Sturton, for including the links to different pieces of legislation and whatever. And under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act, it indicates service animals have training to perform specific tasks for people with disabilities. Emotional support animals provide comfort and security. However, they do not have training for specific tasks. Therefore, emotional support animals do not qualify as service animals under the AODA. Service providers are not required to allow support animals on their premises. So that's a provincial act. I have relatives who have service animals, and I'll tell you, they are the most behaved, most unbelievable animals that you could ever have. When the service animal doesn't have its coat on, it acts just like a regular puppy. But when it has their coat on, they're very diligent and stringent in how they behave. I also have relatives who are allergic to dogs. And if you're allergic to dogs, dogs understand that, and they will come to you. So it's a matter of balancing act on what's everyone's rights. So someone with a service animal, definitely let them anywhere, except around food. The support animals, I think if we have issues with support animals, we have to do some sensitivity training with staff to say, I'm sorry, this is not allowed. These are the reasons why. And I will not support this proposed policy. And I would like to, I don't think we need to divide the we do need to divide the recommendation. One is to accept the report, which is fine, but the other one would be to vote on whether or not we allow any animals over and above service animals in our facilities, and I will not support that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? And I'll turn to the clerk. That's what the I'm sorry, Councilor Kerr.
Yeah, I guess I'm supporting Councilor Wink. I do have concern that the definition of support animal as written fundamentally is the person coming in and saying it's my support is pretty arbitrary. I could have it provides comfort and security to an owner, but may not be trained and the owner does not provide documentation from a health professional confirming the animal is needed and related. I just think it's a real wide open catch that every person can define their animal as support, even though it may be the wildest thing on earth. So I concur with Councilor Ring. I think, yes, the AODA definitions, et cetera, I'm 100% fully behind, but the concept of support, I think, is, and I'm concerned that it will have implications relative to other things that we have within the town, be it on other bylaws, et cetera, that might suddenly be someone wants to grab the word support animal and try and wedge it through under other items. So that's my position on this.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn to the clerk. What Councilor Wink suggests is completely doable?
Yes, absolutely. So we can consider the motion separately. The first part to accept the report for information.
Okay, before we call the vote, Mr. CEO, comments?
So very happy to take, this is one of those things, it's a good policy discussion, and at the end of your vote, it'll be clear to us where you fall on on support animals. But after you receive the report and have a vote, assuming broadly speaking, there are going to be large parts of this policy that you are supportive of, really the most appropriate thing to do is to send it back to staff and direct that we come back to you in another month, or, sorry, if the vote passes, if where Councillor Wing's aiming is the will of the majority, then I'd like to encourage you to direct us to come back with a reworked policy, because I don't want to put words in Ms. Sturton's mouth, she can speak for herself, but I know when a part of something I've drafted, it has coherent flow and makes sense to itself. I'd want the chance to redraft if there's a component of this that's unacceptable to council. So I think that's the best way forward. Like, we ought to be able to redraft it so we have a good policy in place, should that be the will of council. So I think that's just the goal of what you're doing here. So receive the report, have a vote on what you think about support animals, and if you don't support support animals being present in town buildings, then please direct us to come back with a different version of the policy in about a month. And that would be the ideal way forward, if I may.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. CAO. Before I call the vote, any further questions? Not seeing any. So I'll break it down into two parts and two votes. The first is accepting the report as it is. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And excellent, that none opposed. That portion carries. And then the second part, clarification from the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second part currently reads in that council approves policy number S100-17, animals in town facilities. And as the CAO mentioned, now would be the time for council to potentially consider a refer back to staff motion.
Okay. So do we have anyone wishing to put that back, refer back to staff? Do you, Mr. CAO, did you want us to do the vote first? Or it doesn't make much.
You have to discuss amongst yourselves
Okay.
whether there's support for support animals being
Okay.
included in the policy. If there isn't, it's a very easy referral back to staff. And I'd be surprised if we couldn't bring it back in 2 weeks. The work's either 100% done or 90% done,
Okay.
as the case may be.
Okay, so probably better off to get the vote here. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave it as it is. So what we're voting on now, then, again, Madam Clerk, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so currently reads that council approve the proposed policy. I think I would recommend against defeating it as to be able to bring it back.
Yeah, so that doesn't reflect what Councillor Wink's trying to accomplish. So I think you want a positive vote to remove permission for support animals. I think that's
Correct. So just to add on a little bit, support animals are trained to behave around their owners, but also around other animals. Pardon me?
I'm sorry, did you mean service or support?
Service, I'm sorry, thank you. We could have, if we supported this motion that's put before us, here's a scenario. I'm in the library and I bring my dog. And 4 other people bring their dogs, but they're not trained on how to behave around others, including other animals. And all of a sudden we have a dog fight in the library. Is that what we want? Or the MCC or whatever. It's one thing if someone's trying to bring a dog in, but all of a sudden if you bring a group of dogs in, we know what it's like at the dog park with little dogs and big dogs, and they're fighting and they've got to be separated in different areas and whatever. So I do not believe support animals have a place in public buildings.
Thank you, Councilor Wink. I'd like to point out that these dogs all are on leashes. It's not like they're running around in a pack. That's what I can say. Go ahead.
So the leashes are 2 meters.
6 feet.
That's 7 feet. And then you've got your arm. So now we're getting close to 9 feet away from the owner.
Yes. Okay. I believe that we're thinking of an Armageddon, and that probably is not going to happen, but I realize that's the worst-case scenario, and I can appreciate that. Councillor Kerr.
Yes, I understand Councillor Winks and the other one. I think removing it because the terminology of support is very loose. It's very open. The interpretation of it is so wide. I have personal concern with something that really has no formal, true definition. It's an arbitrary, internal, personal definition of my saying it's a support one, the other one, whereas the other ones are documented entities that we're talking about. So I concur that I think we need to take that out. I think I understand the whole thing. I have I have 2 rescue animals. One I can take anywhere. The other one, I don't get within 30 feet of another dog, just because I know it's that type of animal. But I could say, but she really is my friend, and she's very supportive. So I theoretically could take her in and then have mayhem break loose. Now, that's an irresponsible owner, I agree with. But I think this just simplifies, and I hope it doesn't, by removing it, also takes away potential conflicts with other things that we're trying to do within the town, and suddenly having the word support lobbed into the concept. That's my feeling. I think it's a self-defined, self-administered. If there was much more of a regimented definition of support, then I would be a lot more supportive, but I'm not. I'm not supportive of support. It's defined.
Okay. I guess I just have a lot of faith in dog owners knowing where they can take their dog and where they can't, but that's my own personal opinion. Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Just an observation. I don't own dogs, but I do have the privilege of looking after my grand puppies, as they're called. And I know that when I take them out for a walk in my neighborhood on a leash, I see many dogs that I see every day. And I get from the people, they'll say, "Oh, are your dogs friendly?" And I can't answer that, because I have seen every one of them react differently to different size or breeds of dogs. So I just simply say, no, it's best. And I tighten up on the leash and I keep them right by my side. And I appreciate when they do that as well, because I have got the answer, oh, generally they're friendly. And then the next thing you know, I'm pulling them apart. So I agree. I think we're to avoid, and I don't believe there's going to be an Armageddon in the library, but the possibility is there. And I think we should avoid that possibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Deputy Mayor. Anyone here? I'll go to Council Olson.
Yes, Mayor Junkin, can you tell me where we are procedurally right now? What are we approving and discussing here now?
I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you.
We don't have a formal amendment on the floor, but I do understand that one is being discussed and formulated. We don't have a formal amendment on the floor, but I believe one is being formulated as to remove the permission for support animals in the policy.
So what have we passed now?
We've only accepted the report for information.
Okay. And then, so this other one we're about to vote on, the one we're discussing, if you vote for it,
Yes, so if someone would like to put an amendment forward to remove permission to permit support animals within the policy, we could use Councillor Wink as a mover, and we'd be looking for a seconder on that, and then we would consider the policy, save and accept the permission of support animals.
okay, so we do need to go forward. We should
Yes,
have
we
an
would
amendment.
we would need a vote on the permission of support animals within the policy. Or send it back to staff, and either or.
Councillor Kerr?
I think we're getting really convoluted. I think the intention was that we want to send back to staff to rewrite this and remove support animals from the policy recommendation. I think that is the proposal.
Yeah, so why, but that isn't the way this is.
No,
This
that's
is
not
how
what I'm
the
getting at
second
that.
one.
So I
Sorry,
think
there was
the
a
vote-
couple of
Yes.
options,
Yeah, so why
neither
don't
of
we
which
have
are
someone-
formally on the floor,
Yeah, so why doesn't someone put forward an amendment?
or a motion to defer.
I'll make a motion that this policy be returned to staff to be rewritten with support animals removed from the policy, and that the revised policy be brought to council for a future meeting for review.
To the CAO?
We understand how to comply with that in the event it has the support of council.
Thank you. So now we need a seconder. Deputy Mayor Eckert, is that a seconder? Yes. Thank you. Any other further comments on this motion put forward by Councilor Kerr? Not seeing any, I'll call the vote, and please raise your hand and no wolfing. All those in favor? Thank you. And none opposed. Excellent. To the clerk.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to our next item, 10.2.6, Advisory Committee Council Representation and Meeting Frequency Review. I have a motion put forth by Councilor Niznik, seconded by Councilor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2025-0015 for information, and that Council approve amendments to the following terms of reference to establish the meeting frequencies as follows. Pelham Finance and Audit Committee, biannual. Pelham Active Transportation Committee, bi-monthly. Agricultural Advisory Committee, quarterly, with flexibility to call additional meetings as required. And that Council for the Town of Pelham consider and approve the reassignment or reappointment of council members to the following advisory committees for a subsequent 2-year period, being all of the advisory committees. And that Council direct the town clerk to prepare and present a revised appointment bylaw to reflect these changes in council representation. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comments, questions on this agenda item? Councilor Wink.
So there's 3 of us here on the Pelham Finance and Audit Committee. It's indicating that we meet biannually. Looking at the work that's being done, so we review the capital budget and the operating budget at one time. We also assign the auditors at that point in time. We also then have another meeting with respect to water, wastewater. We also then review the actual audit filings, so restricting it to 4 or to 2 meetings is a little, but it says flexibility to call additional meetings as needed, but, it's needed more than 2.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I noticed that when I read the report that I thought biannual, you guys, that committee meets a lot more often than that. Yeah.
Well, and quarterly doesn't cut it because you might have 2 meetings in 1 quarter.
Any suggestions then, sir?
Just leave it as is.
Okay. To the clerk.
So in that case, I'd be looking for an amendment to strike the Pelham Finance and Audit Committee from the second recital.
Okay. Councilor Wink, would you forward that? And we need a seconder on that amendment. Councilor Deputy Mayor Eckert, thank you. Any further discussion on this amendment proposed? Don't see any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. The amendment passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other discussion? I'm sorry. Councilor Niznik.
Well, just if we're moving down to membership on the committees, I'm fine with staying on the Senior Advisory Committee, the Pelham Culture Advisory Committee. I don't see the Town of Pelham Library Board, but that's kind of a separate entity, so, okay, fair enough. So I'm happy to stay on those 2 committees. I don't know if this is the time to declare that, but add my name to those areas. Thank you.
And you're now on record. Excellent. And I believe every council wing, I believe all obviously the 3 that are on the audit, I believe they're staying. So yeah, I don't think there were any staff, any council members changing the committees. So to the clerk.
Well, we have hit our 2-year mark, so now would be the time if there are any other councilors that would like to join new committees or shuffle.
Okay.
we'd be looking for that direction.
Is there any other, any council member that would like to join any of these other committees? I know Councilor Hildebrand, you were on the art committee.
That was last term.
Yeah, I know, but,
served.
okay.
I served.
You don't want to return then?
No,
Okay.
I'm glad to be, they're a different group than
Oh.
you.
Yeah, that's good right there, sir. Okay, thank you, Councillor. I don't see any other councillors bringing forward a preference, so I think everyone's happy where they are.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And then because of that, I would just be looking for an amendment that the third recital be amended to confirm all existing council appointments remain on the following advisory committees.
Councillor Nesnick, you'll put forward that? I will. Okay, and
Excellent,
seconder?
thank you.
Councillor Wink, you'll second. Thank you. Any further debate? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed. Amendment carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the floor is still open for further discussion.
Any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that would lead us to our motion then as amended. So in the first portion, only the Finance and Audit Committee change has been removed, and that would still account for the 2 additional changes to the Active Transportation Committee and Agricultural Advisory Committee. And the remaining part of the motion has been stricken completely, and to allow for all existing appointments to remain.
Yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, a vote on the motion as amended.
Any further discussion on the committees? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed. Item carries.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that brings us to the presentation and consideration of bylaws. Item number 13, and I have a motion put forward by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that the following have been given due consideration, be read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal the bylaws as read. Number 1, Bylaw 1, 2025, being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy for the year 2025. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item? Not seen any. Call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do believe Councillor Olson has a notice of motion that he wishes to present.
Okay, Councillor Olson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Junkin. I would like to bring forward a request for a study and an analysis and a report with respect to our bylaws S300-03, which is the protocol for the development and or redevelopment of telecommunications towers in the town of Pelham. I've had a number of, letters with respect to a tower that's being built in Fenwick exactly, and I understand that there are jurisdictional things, but I think a report would clear that up and help my understanding certainly for where we can work with this to make sure that we have proper towers that don't intrude on the community.
Okay, thank you. And as usual, you will be working with the clerk's
I
department.
will work with the clerk and the staff who have always been very good to me when we work on these things, and I'll be seeking a seconder as well.
Oh, yes,
thank you.
indeed. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. We look forward to the motion. To the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to item 15, resolution to move in camera. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Rick, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following. Section A, the security of property of the municipality. F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications for that purpose, being one item MCC. F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. K, a plan, position, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried out on or behalf of the municipality, and that is one item being in Ward 2. And B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee, being one matter, non-union employee. Sorry, I did miss section 301.1. The meeting is held for the purpose of educating or training the public, and that is related to the one item regarding Ward 2.
Okay.
To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So on the motion to go in camera, any discussion? Not seeing any, call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries, and perhaps be